Well, they will have to make changes. With Mick Barrett injured, Phil Bater will probably take over, and with Archie Stevens having to start a league suspension next weekend, Paul Randall will start the match. Well, now on Saturday, Paul Randall was on the substitutes bench when Rovers came out to play the third division leaders. Walsall's fans there bubbling from the excitement of their Milk Cup adventures. But they were in for an early shot. Brian Williams down the left. Stevenson gets to it, knocks it to Bannon. He places it nicely home. Paul Bannon's first goal there for Rovers, showing the touch Rovers paid £8,000 to Carlisle for. But now the spotlight on Rovers goalkeeper Ray Cashley. And first he shows the perfect way to narrow the angle at an advancing forward and stop Ali Brown from equalising. Next, though, an episode poor Ray will want to forget when Gary Childs let fly with a long, bouncing drive. Whoops. Oh, dear. Still, Cashley's boss was soon to make him feel much better. Player-manager David Williams, a real hotshot, lined up a free kick on the edge of the Walsall box, and see what happens. The Walsall wall crumbles a bit, but the power and the placement is beautiful, and that's the way to hit a free kick. Cashley soon to feel even better and forget that mistake, because it was his long clearance the crowd saw catch the Walsall defence really napping right out of position, and poor Hart knocks it into his own goal in the confusion. So Rovers leading by 2 precious goals at half-time, a vital win, obviously probable. But they needed another goal, and soon it was to be Ian Holloway's long through ball, which is to set up the vital third goal. There's Holloway's long through ball. Stevens again doing the battling. What a spearhead he is. And Randall there sniffing out the sort of chance he's so good at tucking home. So that was really the match pretty well sewn up. Finally, Rovers' defence, though, was to be caught napping near the end, and Walsall's player-manager managed to get a second consolation goal for them. So Walsall do remain in first position, but Rovers are 5th, and they have restored their promotion credibility. Well, now Swindon, they had a vital game too.
But Millers were ground to powder themselves last night by Bristol Rovers, and it was latest signing Paul Bannon on the score sheet once again. Now that win, helped along by a draw for both Wimbledon and Walsall, means that Rovers are well and truly back in the promotion race. Well, Rotherham's John Dungworth had Ray Cashley stretching to pull off a fine save, but Ava McCaffrey was injured in the collision. Rovers' reply was emphatic as McCaffrey limped. Brian Williams played a ball into Bannon, but he was tackled by Phil Crosby. Manager David Williams followed up to blast the ball into the net in the 27th minute. And Cashley was quickly off his line moments later when Rovers' defence was caught square. Well, Rovers' second goal came just before half-time. Paul Randall, on for McCaffrey, beat 2 men, chipped to the far post, and waiting for it, Paul Bannon to find the empty corner of the net. Into the second half now, and a Kilmore shot about to deflect off the head of Phil Bater into the Rovers' net. The referee, Mr. John Deakin, adjudged that Dugworth was standing in an offside position. Well, Holloway caused plenty of problems up front with the Rotherham's defence, this shot just going over. White and Barrett likewise buzzed around the box. Rotherham's keeper Mims just doing enough to put off the final shot. Well, despite claims for a penalty, Mr. Deakin was unimpressed. Well, Mims pulled off yet another reaction save late in the game to rob Rovers of their third goal. Still, the 2-0 win was enough, a clear-cut victory on the warmest evening of the year. Well, Bristol City expects striker Glyn Riley to recover. But Rovers manager David Williams was in the treatment room today with a back injury. Let's hope it's not the one which kept him out of the game, you recall, for something like 6 months last year. Well, who would have thought Bristol Rovers were suffering from flu with the bench wrapped up like cotton wool? On the pitch, though, a remarkable performance from Wimbledon goalkeeper Dave Beeson. Apart from pulling off fine saves like that, the local fans had to watch some pretty strange keeping from a man who's trying to overshadow Bruce Grovelar. But what infuriated the fans most was some pretty boring soccer. Beeson took most of the free kicks, a massive route upfield, bypassing the centre of the park, and with 4 tall front runners hoping to capitalise off Rovers' solid defence. Well, that sort of kick and rush tactics might win promotion. It certainly won't win fans. Then, following another series of decent upfield punts, thus ending a first half with Wimbledon trying to bore fans to death and Rovers trying to forget their sneezing and work out a kink in their opponent's very strange armour. Well, the second half livened up when Stuart Evans popped his looping shot over the Rovers bar, and that was only just over, as you'll see. And this sudden activity created a rush of blood with Beeson because he tried to chest a loose ball on the edge of the box. Steve White said thanks a million and popped the ball into an empty net. A gift of a goal, and I'm afraid coming up another fist in the air, still maybe the FA aren't watching. Well, Wimbledon soon made amends. Glyn Hodges was allowed far too much freedom on the left side of the park. And it was his low cross which was headed home quite brilliantly by the in-rushing Dean Thomas. Cashley picking up the rebound from inside his own net. And in the dying moments, well, Mike Barrett, who'd crawled out of his flu bed to play, must have suffered another hot flush when he saw his shot cannon off the crossbar. It was a slow build-up. And the final score, Bristol Rovers 1, Wimbledon 1, Rovers unlucky not to get 3 points, but one is not to sneeze at. I can never imagine Mike Rafter playing a casual role in any game of rugby. Well, let's move on now to soccer, and Bristol Rovers played in front of their smallest league gate of the season on Saturday as they took Lincoln apart with a fine display of attacking football. Now, manager David Williams must today be wondering why his team didn't perform like that a few weeks ago when promotion was very much on the cards.
They set up an attacking move. Hughes won the ball in midfield from John Fashanu. Mike Barrett is then brought into the move, who found Brian Williams out wide. His centre was shot on by Stevens, and White gets the final touch to make it 1-0 to Rovers. Lincoln's equaliser was a touch messy. Cashley stopped a Thomas shot, but then tripped the player, which resulted in a penalty. Marshall Burke scored from the spot to make it 1-1. Rovers were in complete control, and a whole series of near misses could have made the score look like a rugby game. On the half-time whistle, both teams trooped off for a welcome drink in a game played in 70 degrees of sunshine. Mike Barrett enjoyed a sunshine day. A quite brilliant save from David Felgate denied him at close quarters. Barrett now enjoying his football again after 3 months of failing to gain a regular first-team place. And Barrett almost broke an upright with this shot, a real blaster from close range. Barrett's first goal, Rovers' second, came from a corner. And it was Barrett who rose above the Lincoln defence to head in the ball from the underside of the crossbar. 2-1 to Rovers. Once again, Rovers show how quickly they can switch from defence to attack. Archie Stevens, as always dangerous near the box, was hauled down for a free kick to Rovers. Four minutes from time, Holloway's free kick fell vacant in the box.
Well, the first sign that Mickey was ill came at a pre-season training session 3 weeks ago. Jaundice and hepatitis were diagnosed, then lung cancer. He began a course of radio and chemotherapy, and there were high hopes for a recovery. He was suffering from the same sort of cancer that had struck down top jockey Bob Champion, and Champion recovered. But on Friday, Mickey's condition became critical. He was a local lad, born and bred. As a schoolboy from Shirehampton, he played for City, but didn't get a full-time club contract until Rovers saw him score 3 goals against their junior side. He was then 19. For the last 4 seasons, he was a first-team regular, scoring a total of 19 goals, 9 of them in the last season.
Everybody was absolutely stunned and shocked this morning when the news came through. We'd just finished training when I got a phone call. 1 or 2 of the players were still around, and they were told immediately. And, well, I mean, the reaction was the same from everybody.
What will you always remember him for?
As a player who had a tremendous talent, the type of player that crowds love to come and watch, because he could do things that most players could not do, in that he could beat players, he could score goals. And last season, I think, was probably his best season at this football club.
As a mark of respect, tonight's pre-season friendly between Rovers and Bath City has been put off. And Rovers have already promised financial help for his family, and that could include, at the very least, a testimonial. But for players and fans alike, the sight of Barrett...
And it was to prove in no uncertain manners that it was going to be Rovers' day. And the thoughts that the recent death of player Mickey Barrett was going to affect Bristol Rovers' performance was soon dispelled. Randall was upheaved by Simon Gibson, and it was the former Swindon player Brian Williams who was left to beat Swindon's new goalkeeper Andy Sperring to give Rovers that much-needed early lead. Well, Swindon certainly rallied, and 12 minutes later, from their first corner, Rowland's flick-on, however, was put in the net by Swindon's latest signing, Peter Coyne, formerly of non-league Hyde United. That made it 1-1. Randall, now a stone trimmer after a summer crash diet, streaked free to a David Williams pass and found the net with ease to make it 1-2 to Rovers. Fortunately, the action then switched onto the terraces, where police and officials stopped a pitch invasion when one of the gates was forced open. 20 fans arrested, one badly injured, a sad sign of the new season. But back on the pitch, the floodgates opened for Rovers as they scored their third goal. Archie Stevens sent manager David Williams away. He beat the goalkeeper and found the net. And a happier manager you'll probably not find today, because within a few moments, David Williams was in the perfect scoring position, right in that box area. No wonder he did a somersault. The Rovers' fifth goal came from a set-piece, Parkin on the near post flick to Randall, who gave Sperry no chance. We were outplayed, said Swindon manager Lou Macari. The Rovers taking the first leg then by 5-1. A convincing win in every way. And the attendance getting even greater back there at Swindon.
They're now top of the third division, thanks to a convincing victory at Eastville at the weekend.
It was Rovers' first home match of the season, and before it started, a minute's silence was observed in memory of Mickey Barrett, the club's winger who died of cancer. Around the ground, a special tribute of 5,000 flowers. Rovers' first goal came from a free kick taken by new signing Mark O'Connor. Archie Stevens' header beat Lichfield, much to the delight of the club's top scorer last season, not to mention the 5,000-plus fans. Ian Holloway was unlucky a few minutes later when he did everything right, but found Preston's keeper just that little bit better to fingertip the ball away. It wasn't until the 72nd minute that Rovers broke through the Preston defence again. This time it was the slim-looking Paul Randall who used every inch to cleverly nod the ball back into the net. And with 5 minutes to go, it was Randall who sent in the perfect cross, which Stevens volleyed home for his second and the club's third goal of the game. That win puts Rovers top of Division 3. And Rovers' attention now switches to tomorrow night when they entertain Swindon at Eastville in the Milk Cup with a 5-1 lead from the first leg. City, after extending their lead at the top of Division 3. With 19 points from 7 league matches, Saturday saw a welcome return for 2 Rovers players, striker Steve White, midfield man, player manager David Williams. Well, David Williams soon stamped his mark on the game, showing how vital his presence is, both in midfield, the build-up, and the fact he's prepared to come forward and add that little extra zip up front. This early attacking move ended up with a David Williams shot being deflected for a corner. Now we see Williams as a defensive player in his own box, and it was from this move that Rovers scored the deciding goal. White gathered in midfield. We'll see him again in a moment. And he passes to Halliday, who moves the ball out to the left, eventually ending up with Mark O'Connor. O'Connor made a great bit of space and sent in the most perfect cross to Steve White. White's header beat Trowbridge's former keeper John Smolders, and Rovers were ahead, White scoring his first league goal of the season. Well, Bournemouth can consider themselves unlucky with this 30-yard thunderbolt from Robbie Savage. He beat Cashley all ends up, and Bournemouth were unlucky that the return header went just wide. Well, into the second half, and O'Connor proved that he could hit the woodwork too in the second period. Smoulders getting the rebound in the back of the net before it was eventually cleared by his defence. Well, Rovers did find the net again. Randall set up Halliday on the right. White gets into the act, leaving Parkin to plant the ball into the goal, but a foul on Smoulders resulted in a free kick. So Rovers win by that single goal and then fell foul of the officials, because when the teams trooped off, they discovered the water mains had burst and no one could take a shower. They're likely to be reported for that.
Martin Hurst is their injured player, and this could mean that Bobby Hutchinson makes his senior debut. Bristol Rovers, trailing 4-0 from the first leg, could be without their captain, Aidan McCaffrey. He's extremely doubtful through injury. Phil Bater may be called into the defence to take on Arsenal, who, of course, are the new First Division leaders.
Ask any Bristol Rovers fan and he'll agree that Rovers are playing some of the best football he's seen in years. On Saturday against Derby, Rovers scored a peach of a goal. The visitors were helpless as Paul Randall volleyed the ball into the goal. A very weight-conscious Randall, the slimline striker who's added a real tonic to the Rovers' attack. The fans are also commenting on a Rovers side who are not only prepared to play clever football, the one-touch type, but they're also prepared to fire in long-range shots. On Saturday, Rovers were on target 12 times to Derby's 3. With White and Randall buzzing up front and the midfielders prepared to blast away, it's no wonder goalkeepers are fearful of fumbles. Rovers' second goal came from a Randall breakaway 7 minutes from time. Burridge was quickly off his line, but the brave Randall, who took a knock, managed to squeeze the ball into the net. In the very next move, Randall must have thought he was in for a hat-trick, but his delight was short-lived. He looked up and noticed the linesman had adjudged him offside. And with 60 seconds to go, Rovers conceded a goal. It came from nowhere. Quick-thinking Bobby Davison saw Cashley off his line and chipped him brilliantly. Anyway, that victory puts Rovers top of Division 3 again.
And a good crowd there to see them do it. Well, Swindon Town's decision...
Miracle comeback from a first-leg 4-0 deficit was shattered in the 20th minute. It started when Neil Slatter mishit a back pass, and it was only the quick-thinking Brian Williams who robbed England striker Tony Woodcock. From the corner, Tommy Caton's header hit the crossbar and ricocheted in off the back of Ray Cashley. The only noise in the ground came from the 700 or so Arsenal fans. Hopes of rescuing some pride from the game came for Rovers 60 seconds into the second half. Steve White smashed a vicious shot past the helpless Pat Jennings to tie it all up. White's delight included a kiss to the fans. Tony Woodcock caused major headaches for Rovers' defence, so much so that Cashley was forced to bring him down for a penalty. Woodcock electing to take the spot kick himself, Cashley picked the right way to dive, much to the delight of the 10,000 fans. Rovers' first chance of winning the second leg came when Steve White nodded a header into the ever-alert hands of Northern Ireland international Pat Jennings. Thus ended a fascinating cup time, and for a change it was the visiting side who was swamped by eager autograph hunters, Rovers losing 5-1 on aggregate. As Rovers ran out to do battle with Doncaster, managed by Billy Bremner, it was a historic day for defender Timmy Parkin, his 150th appearance in a blue shirt since signing from Malmo. And the Eastville fans were also happy to see their injured captain back in action, Aidan McCaffrey, now recovered from his broken toe. And certainly the crowd of 5,000 plus was soon on their feet as Rovers set off at an electrifying pace, causing problems to the Doncaster backs. Steve White could easily have scored twice in this move as the ball was pushed about by a very confident Rovers attack, who were out to ensure the club's 100% home league winning record. But chances like this must be taken, says manager David Williams. He certainly took his chance 10 minutes into the match when he scored his third goal in 2 games. But from this moment on, Rovers' performance started to fade. With extra stewards monitoring the language, a number of fans must have bitten their lips as Rovers let the game slip. Some slack defence allowed Doncaster to steal an away draw just when Rovers should have increased their top-of-table lead. Scottish youth international Jim Dobbin made it 1-1.
Well, Rovers will name their side for tomorrow's game at Wigan in the morning. They have no injury worries, we hear, but City will be without injured Glyn Riley for their home game. That's probably echoes coming up from some Kings Lynn. Fisher Athletic, Swindon are away to Dagenham, and Exeter are home to Enfield. Now, all those ties to be played on Saturday, November the 17th. Well, Rovers' home draw may at least pacify their fans who are still seeing blue, excuse the pun, following a 1-1 draw against Hull. As the teams left the field, the fans hurled abuse and in one voice called the ref a cheat.
Little did Rovers striker Paul Randall know what was in store for him in Saturday's vital top-of-the-table clash. The crowd's anger started when Paul Randall was signalled offside when many thought he'd been played onside, and an early goal was denied to Bristol Rovers. Certainly it was a late flag, and subsequent decisions were to enrage the crowd even more. Rovers' goal came from deep in their own half when Parkin brought the ball out and passed to David Williams. He saw former QPR man Mark O'Connor free on the wing, and O'Connor showed some First Division footwork to beat Hull's defence and float a perfect cross to the waiting Archie Stevens. It was a great goal, and one which should have ensured victory for Bristol Rovers. But Rovers' attack was constantly thwarted by a series of offside decisions, 11 in all, including that one which is clearly not. Randall had become so frustrated by then, he allegedly showed dissent by clapping to the crowd. Linesman Keith Tilley was not amused, and referee Butler booked Randall, his name joining Brian Williams for a similar offence. Well, Hull's reply to that loss of concentration was emphatic. While McCaffrey tried to haul Whitehurst down, he still managed to get in a shot which had Cashley well beaten. So the game ended 1 apiece, and Rovers are now without a win in 4 outings, but still in second place. Well, the fans had the final say, shouting the word cheat as the players and officials left the field.
Ugly scenes there at Eastville. Well, their plan to get back to the top of Division 3 wasn't helped by Bristol City, who managed a 1-1 draw at Millwall and dropped 2 places in the table for their trouble. Swindon, on the other hand, the only West Country teams, made the long journey to Bristol from Norfolk to cheer on their side. It was a big family occasion, and one supporter tried unsuccessfully to hand out winning cigars to the Southern Leaguers as they arrived at the stadium. Rovers' best scoring chance in the first half fell to Ian Holloway, but goalkeeper Andy Claxton had the angle covered. But it was Kings Lynn who took the lead. It came from a corner, and Rovers' defence in disarray allowed central defender Clive Adams to hook the ball into the net. The visiting crowd went mad. Rovers supporters were stunned into silence. But it took Rovers only 4 minutes to equalise, and it was the Blues captain David Williams who made no mistake to blast a long shot past Claxton, this time to the delight of the Bristol Rovers fans, or was it nervous applause? Kings Lynn's exit from the cut came from a cruel blow. Adams, the man who'd put them ahead, attempted to clear with a diving header, only to hammer it into his own net. To make the final score, Bristol Rovers 2, Kings Lynn 1, a day which definitely belonged to the semi-professional footballers who did their supporters proud.
For the only point they got against Millwall. He says that Randall missed 3 clear chances and that cost his team dearly.
Well, Rovers should have gone behind against Millwall in the first minute when the commentator's dread, Anton Tulakowski, was given a free sight of goal but shot tamely straight at Ray Cashley. Linesman Pete Davis from Exmouth found the Eastville mud a handicap, but Rovers, enjoying the conditions on the pitch, went ahead after 21 minutes. Parkin's interception and a neat work between Randall, Stevens and manager David Williams eventually gets the ball across to Mark O'Connor on the left, and Archie Stevens heads home. Well, Ray Cashley kept Rovers ahead with a flying save, this time from Steve Lovell. But it was Rovers who brought the first half to a rousing close with the nearest of misses. Randall, perhaps a little unlucky here, beat goalkeeper Paul Sansom, only to find the crossbar and the ball eventually being bundled for a corner. And poor Paul Randall had more chances in the second half. Holloway's cross from the right deserved a better header. Rovers' next chance, set up by Holloway and Randall, ended with Stevens shooting over. And just watch, was O'Connor tripped? Looked a bit like it. But it was Millwall who scored, getting the equaliser on the hour. Lovell's header looped over the top of Cashley. And Ray Cashley was in action again from Cusac's free kick moments later. And Randall really should have scored here, breaking through on his own. Alan McCleary it was, doing enough to divert the ball with his foot for a corner. And from that kick, Stevens saw Sansom make a fine save.
Welcome back to part two and our regular Monday look at sport, and joining us in the studio tonight, a very happy man indeed, that's David Williams, the player manager of Bristol Rovers. In a moment, we'll be talking to him about their first division opposition in the third round of the FA Cup. Rovers, of course, have drawn Ipswich at home, and we shall be discussing his club's chances of springing perhaps a major upset. But before that, a chance to relive the thrills of Saturday's Cup derby against Bristol City. Well, almost 20,000 people turned up at Ashton Gate, over twice as many people as at other FA Cup matches, and we shall hear today that both clubs, as a result of that, share £36,000 in gate receipts.
Well, it's a welcome sight to see crowds in their thousands back at West Country football. And they were all there on Saturday, either to see Bristol Rovers revenge a league defeat last month by Bristol City, or they were there to see the Red Robins achieve a treble over the Pirates, with not only pride at stake, but for the victor, a chance of a lucrative third-round draw against one of the first and second division teams. And as you would expect, the game started at a furious pace. Tackles were hard, no quarter was given, as City set off at an electrifying pace. And it was Aidan McCaffrey of Rovers who downed Howard Pritchard in the 4th minute. But instead of shooting, Alan Walsh chipped a perfect ball, which was met in the box by Halliday, who glanced it past the helpless Ray Cashley. 1-0 to City, and for a few moments it looked as if City would run riot. Moments later, Keith Cole was ambitious with a long shot. Cashley, apparently unsighted, managed to hang on. Ironically, it was his best friend Ian Holloway who controlled the ball next. Holloway, to many the man of the match, floated a delightful ball onto the head of O'Connor. And Hooper in the City goal was caught flat-footed. Rovers took the lead in the 19th minute. David Williams put Randall away to find an unguarded net. Rovers had lifted their game, they'd won control in the midfield, they'd pulled a goal back, and they looked unbeatable. Rovers constantly attacked down the right flank, causing major problems to City's defence. On many occasions, Rovers held their head in amazement as shots went wide. But 2 minutes before half-time, the game was virtually over. Randall was slipped the ball by Holloway, and a professional foul from Hooper was the only way he was to be stopped, as he made it 3-1 to Rovers. And the second half was not a scratch on the first, and by the final whistle it was clear that the best side had won, and Rovers had revenged 2 earlier defeats in both the league and the cup.
So not much doubt at all about that. Well, after 45 minutes had gone after the game, the Rovers, like a good many of us, were huddled around the radio to hear, of course, the draw for the next round, and to hear that Rovers were home against First Division Ipswich in the third round. Well, it's a tie that's bound to bring back memories for David Williams of a cold and snowy day back in February 1978. This was the last time that Ipswich visited Eastville, and it wasn't without controversy.
So far. This is dangerous. It's there. David Williams has scored. Well, as the corner came over and Rovers had not been making much of them, they did much better with that one. And when it broke nicely for David Williams, just a little flick of his head and it was in the net. He'll change in his mind. It's a good one. Oh, and that's a goal! And from Paul Cooper's point of view, there was not much he could do about that one. A little bit of genius from the Welshman. Bristol Rovers 2, Ipswich 1.
David, you take it very calmly. That must bring back a few memories. But presumably, you'd obviously like much better weather for the next cup tie, wouldn't you?
Oh, definitely. I think there was a lot of doubt as to whether that game would be played because there was quite a covering of snow on the field.
And I think we performed better, really, under firmer conditions and on grass.
How well do you remember that match? What was it, 6 years ago now?
Yes, well, as you saw, I got both the goals. There was a little bit of doubt as to whether I scored the first one, but I'm claiming it. It was an enjoyable game, made a little bit tricky and a little bit of a lottery because of the snow, but I think that favoured us at the time, rather than Ipswich, who were the first division side and would like to play the ball around. And we were disappointed in the end that we only got a draw on that occasion, because we were 2-1 up with something like a minute to go, and they equalised, won the replay, and in fact went on to win the cup.
So what about the new tie then? Ipswich at home, January the 5th. How do you rate your chances?
Well, they're not one of the high flyers in the first division at the moment, with all due respect to them, and I don't think they'll be relishing the prospect of coming to Eastville, especially if between now and then we can put a few results together and make the task more difficult for them.
How does this interfere, if it does interfere, with your plans for promotion?
Well, I think it's a little bit of a bonus. It's something that we can look forward to. Obviously, we need points from the league games between now and then, and right the way through the rest of the season. But it's something to take our mind off the promotion race from time to time through the year.
What about today? Now, how have you been spending today? Presumably you've got over what happened on Saturday, and as we've seen, there wasn't much doubt at all about the result. You've managed to get your revenge. How have you been spending today and the rest of the lads?
Well, we've trained this morning, and it's obviously been an enjoyable morning after Saturday, but we've got to get our feet back down on the ground as soon as possible. In fact, the players are having tomorrow off, but we'll have a very good, hard day on Wednesday then.
Football's a funny game, isn't it? You know, not so long ago they were all gunning for you. We thought, well, perhaps David Williams is on his way. Things are changing, aren't they?
It does. It changes very, very quickly indeed. And we were fortunate this year in that we drew Bristol City in the FA Cup, because after the league game at Ashton Gate, I think a lot of people were sort of thinking, well, we don't play them again now until March, and we couldn't get another crack at them. And then all of a sudden, the FA Cup is kind to us, so we get another chance, and we did the business on Saturday.
One final comment. How about this red sweater you're wearing tonight? You better explain that.
Well, you caught me on the hop. I left home this morning, didn't realise that you would want me here this evening, and that's the explanation.
David, thank you anyway for coming in and joining us. Well, I can tell Rovers fans wanting to go and see this third-round cup tie on January the 5th. Tickets will be going on sale at Eastville this Saturday before the Newport game, and it will not. City's 10 means the Pirates now go 2 points above the Robins, and they have a game in hand. Well, Bristol Rovers helped their cause with a comfortable win over Newport, watched by nearly 5,500 fans.
A typical pre-Christmas afternoon here at Eastville as Rovers take to the field, full of confidence after that cup win over City last weekend. And a couple of interesting faces at the Newport end. Number 6, Roy Carter, recently, of course, linked with a move to Rovers, and wearing shirt number 4 there, Tony Pulis, sold by Rovers to Newport for £8,000 last summer. Well, just 4 minutes gone now, and Rovers doing all the attacking. Archie Stevens is clear in the middle of the field, but he's definitely unceremoniously dumped by Lewis, so a free kick to Rovers right on the edge of the Newport penalty area. Well, it looks as though Williams is going to take it. A lot of movement up front, but Williams... Oh, what a cracking shot. Yes, Rovers lead then after just 4 minutes. David Williams it was. A curling right foot shot. His 7th goal of the season. Well, I make it about 10 minutes to half-time. And again, it's Rovers swinging into top gear, pushing the ball forward. Randall flicks on, Holloway. Holloway now out to O'Connor. O'Connor scores! O'Connor, his 4th goal in 3 games. Rovers' summer signing seems to be paying the club back handsomely. Great goal. So 2-0 at half-time, and on the sideline, the widow of Mickey Barrett, Louise, and 10-week-old Liam. It's his first ever football match. It's Newport on the attack now. David Giles out to Cooper. Chamberlain is free in the middle if they can get the ball to him. There's Chamberlain, shoots first, gets the rebound, in again, and Rovers extremely lucky there to clear the ball away. Chamberlain a golden opportunity, and really an early Christmas present that for Rovers, escaping there. The Newport goal would have cost them dearly. And back to the game, it's Rovers' turn to put on the pressure. Randall free in the centre, he can't miss. Yes, he can. He can't believe it either, and neither can the fans. So the game ended with Rovers winning by 2-0, a tribute to the Rovers' defence.
What a muddy pitch. So it's happy Bristol Rovers, and of course that win keeps them up with the promotion contenders. Well, staying with soccer, Swindon Town's game against Colchester was watched by just 2,200 fans. And when you can... disappointment.
Well, it was to be a joyous afternoon for Bristol Rovers striker Archie Stevens, who was one of the reasons Swansea's new manager John Bond described his defence as one of the worst he'd ever seen. Punctuating that quote, perhaps one of the worst tackles we've seen, which set up a free kick for Rovers. O'Connor took it, and there was the brave Archie Stevens diving at the ball and beating Jimmy Rimmer in the Swansea goal. Well, Swansea City equalised a few moments later, and despite a flag up for offside, which was mysteriously dropped again, as referee Vic Keller waved play on, Colin Pascoe's cross was stuck home by Dean Saunders. Much to the anger of the Rovers defence, who were claiming offside and are still claiming the same today. Well, Rovers regained the lead in the 24th minute. David Williams' free kick found Stevens unmarked, and again he beat Rimmer. But Swansea came back again. This time Saunders' long ball puts Mardenborough away on the left wing, and his 25-yard shot surprisingly beat Cashley. Rovers' third came in the second half. A long free kick from Parkin allowed Holloway to have a swing at the ball, and his shot was just managed to avoid Rimmer, and there to put the ball home was Paul Randall. Well, the icing on the Christmas cake came midway through the half. Holloway's corner was helped on by McCaffrey, then Randall, and finally O'Connor, who scored. A thoroughly convincing victory there for Bristol Rovers.
Welcome to Bobby Gould. Remember, he was then a Rovers player when those teams last met at Eastville 7 years ago. But first, Bobby, everyone now knows you got the sack up at Coventry. What are your plans?
Well, Bruce, I'm now out of work, having Father Christmas called 3 days too late for me, and I ended up with the sack. Out of work and looking forward to any new challenge, and perhaps sitting behind that seat, Bruce, who knows?
Right, well, if that's what you want, you have a go at it. Well, the first time that we knew of Bobby Gould here in the West was 16 years ago, and we weren't very happy with the goal that he scored against Swindon in the League Cup final at Wembley.
Graham, now Gould off in support. Can Gould get to it now? It's a goal by Gould! And my goodness, is he not pleased with life? Bobby Gould!
A moment to savour, Bruce, but unfortunately the result went the wrong way that day, and we ended up getting beaten 3-1. But to all the Swindon fans, I won't hold that against them.
They were highly delighted on that day, weren't they?
Very much so, yes. A tremendous result for the club. Right,
well, Bobby's also a member of that exclusive club of professionals who played for both Bristol clubs, the City and the Rovers. He first arrived at Ashton Gate in 1972.
Bobby Gould, complete with Beetle haircut, joined City from West Bromwich Albion, having also played for Wolves, Arsenal and Coventry, where he started his career. After a year at City, Bobby asked for a transfer and was sold for £80,000 to West Ham. 4 years later, the affable striker signed for Bristol Rovers. In his debut against Blackburn, he scored a hat-trick, but again his stay was short-lived, moving to Hereford for a small fee a year later. But Gould was to return to Rovers again, appointed manager in 1981. During his stay, Rovers vied for third division promotion, but before the very final match of the 82 season, Bobby Gould announced his intention of taking over the helm at First Division Coventry.
No grey hairs in those days, Bruce, was there? Just a lot longer, but definitely no grey hairs. But in saying that, Bruce, I still hold a Bristol Rovers tie and a Bristol City tie, to which I add to all my collection of other club ties. I wondered if Richard White would like to make a dicky bow out of both of them.
I wonder. We'll ask him at the end of the programme, shall we? Well, briefly before looking at this Saturday's match, a quick reminder of that FA Cup tie at Eastville 7 years ago. Well, Rovers were leading 2-1 when it seemed that a goal by Bobby Gould had landed the First Division side a real knockout punch.
Chance for Bobby Gould to wrap it up.
Unfortunately, it looks there as though the defender did pass it back into my path, but the referee and linesman disallowed it. Rather impressed here, Bruce, the way the fullback passes to me. Actually, keep my feet under trying circumstances. Definitely a lot lighter in those days, Bruce, and managed to slide it nicely into the corner here. I'm led to believe they cut out all the words afterwards when they had a close-up on me.
That's all water under the bridge now, isn't it? That's happened. We can't change it. But what about this Saturday's game?
Well, I think everybody in the West Country is looking forward to it. I saw the Bristol Rovers performance against Cambridge the other evening. It was a lacklustre performance, but a great result for them, having been beaten 4-1 at Gillingham on the Saturday. And their home record this year is tremendous, 8 wins and 3 draws and no losses. But with Ipswich playing away from home, their away record this year hasn't been so good. Only 1 win and 3 draws and 6 losses. So I think the odds are stacked in Rovers' favour this time.
Is it a big factor to be playing at Eastville, of course, before the home crowd as well?
Very much so. Bristol Rovers, let's face it, have got nothing to lose, but Ipswich in the bottom half of the First Division. Every club looking for every penny they can get these days regarding finance. And it's Bristol Rovers Cup final on the day, and I'm sure that David Williams and Wayne Jones will have wound up the lads to such an extent that on 3 o'clock on Saturday afternoon they'll come out firing all the bullets they can.
If you were the governor over at Eastville, what would you be whispering in their ears just before they went out onto the pitch?
Well, that's a difficult one to answer because we all manage in different styles. But David Williams and Wayne Jones have done a tremendous job this season, pushing Bristol Rovers as far as they have done. And I'm sure that all the Bristol Rovers supporters will be willing them towards a victory.
Well, you'll be at that game for us. We should look forward to seeing how you see the game and, of course, the result itself. Well, reaction to another bit of football news today. Tom Ritchie's decided to leave Ashton Gate and go down and join Jerry Gower down at Yeovil. This is an odd move, isn't it?
It does come at a very, very strange time, especially for Tom Ritchie, who still proves he can play league football, but very
en route, they went to Eastville and drew 2-2 in the snow.
Woods. Chance here. It's there. Robin Turner, the scorer.
Not really made much impression from these corner kicks so far. This is dangerous. It's there. David Williams has scored. Still changing his mind. A good one. Oh, and that's a goal! Another goal by David Williams! Barry's header, Williams' header. Taylor. Mariner. Well, this is dangerous, and indeed that's... Oh, my goodness me! It's there! Robin Turner getting the goal.
In the final minute of the 3rd round against First Division Ipswich Town. Now, in a moment we'll be getting the expert opinion of former Rovers manager Bobby Gould on that game, but first the highlights as we go to a cold and snow-covered pitch at Eastville. I just wonder if the frozen pitch will affect the outcome of this cup tie as Ipswich attempt to reach the 4th round for a record 15th consecutive time, and Rovers try to revenge that defeat of 78 when Ipswich went on to grab the cup at Wembley. Well, Rovers have certainly got to mark 17-year-old Jason Dozzell closely. He's tipped for great things in the future. And the same for England international Eric Gates, both potential match winners as we join the action midway through the first half. Putney clear in the middle of the field, beats his man. Makes out for the right wing. He's got players in the centre. Puts the ball there, touch back. There's Dozzell, shoots, and Cashley, no chance at all. First Division Ipswich take the lead then after 31 minutes, a goal from Dozzell. 7 minutes gone now of the second half. Brian Williams beats his man. This looks promising. I think he's overhit it. Holloway, great goal. That will be the goal of the season. Ian Holloway hitting it on the volley, ties it up, 1 apiece. Rovers on the attack again. Holloway clear on the right, buzzing around. He has been causing all sorts of problems to Ipswich defence. Centres. Williams and Stevens try a 1-2. Wasted. A wasted chance there for Rovers. Gates flicks through for Brennan. Brennan going through. Cashley dives bravely. High ball into the box. Randall nods down. Stevens mishits and holds his head in shame. A free kick to Ipswich. Brennan shoots through the wall, and that was well saved by Cashley. He must have been unsighted, but still danger. No, there's Stevens to clear. Well, I make it a minute away from a replay. Butcher to Brennan. Brennan tries a long shot. It's in! Incredible. It bounced off the post onto Cashley. 2-1 to Ipswich. All the damage done today by the 2 Ipswich teenagers. Well, Bebby, the Ipswich jinx seems to have hit Bristol Rovers yet again.
Yes, especially in the last few minutes, isn't it? You know, a shot there from Brennan from fully 40 yards, hitting the crossbar and coming back off Ray Cashley's body.
Who was at fault there, do you think?
It's very difficult to say. You know, they'd had a free kick just prior to that, and it was a hopeful ball was just hit back into the middle of the Rovers half, and the boy Brennan just controlled it. Hit a tremendous shot with all greatest respect to everybody watching, and it had a vicious dip right at the last few moments.
Well, the game overall, Rovers really were not outclassed in any shape, size or form, were they?
No, they weren't. You know, there's been 13 attempts on the Rovers goal and 9 attempts on the Ipswich goal. I thought Ian Holloway's goal just after half-time was a magnificent effort. Fabulous cross from Brian Williams, getting free on the left, and he picked Ian out on the back post when everybody thought he'd made the wrong decision, but Ian volleyed away a fabulous goal and put Rovers back in the hunt.
Ipswich took the lead with a well-taken goal.
Yes, extremely well-taken goal. The boy Putney won it on the halfway line, went on, Timmy Parkin held him up for a little bit, and then he knocked a good ball into the middle where Gase had a half attempt blocked, but the young boy Dazelle got on the end of it and finished with a tremendously well-struck left foot shot.
Well, if you were manager of Bristol Rovers now, what would you be saying in the dressing room right beneath us?
I think the lads must be thoroughly disappointed. I think everybody in the ground virtually thought they were going back to Portman Road for a replay, but you know, there's football. It's an unpredictable game, isn't it? You know, a tremendous strike from the boys, as I said earlier on, but on day 3, magnificent goals under such difficult conditions. You know, I always had a saying when I'm a manager and a player, they don't let racehorses run on conditions like that, but they let professional footballers play on it. It's not fair, to be perfectly honest, but the teams have to go out and they battle. Very, very difficult to keep your feet at times, but everybody adapted themselves, and the training was only on once, right at the end when Rovers conceded a goal virtually from that free kick.
Well, when Ipswich last had a bit of luck down here, they went on to win the cup.
Yes, they did, didn't they? Perhaps they're thinking that in their dressing room now. You know, I'm sure they're well aware that they're lucky to get away with a victory here today, and that they're in the hat on Monday when the draw's made.
Bobby, thank you very much. It's a bit cold. Let's go and enjoy a cup of tea now.
I think so, and especially with my new addition to my kit.
I thought you'd been biting your nails, but it's clearly not that.
No, I didn't do that as a manager. These were presented by my son, so they've kept my hands nice and warm anyway.
Thanks, Bobby. Enjoyed that immensely. Well, let's stay with soccer because a friendship which started at Ashton Gate in 1969 when 2 young Scotsmen, Tom Ritchie and Jerry Gow, both joined and signed for Bristol City, was remembered again on Saturday when they played on the same side, but this time...
We'll spend much of today analysing a videotape of last night's match where Bolton snatched a late winner. Williams will decide whether or not a major team shake-up is needed after just 1 win and 1 draw in their last 7 games. Last night's defeat also ended the club's unbeaten home league record this season, as Ian Seymour now reports.
Bristol Rovers are going through a disastrous period. They have a side oozing with potential but missing that bit of fortune necessary at this time of the season. Last night, Rovers' misery started in the 14th minute when a wretched back pass from Geraint Williams gave Colwell a gift goal for Bolton. Rovers answered back with some enterprising play up front, with Ian Holloway ever alert for a chance to get the ball onto his left foot. But again, Rovers were robbed by the woodwork. With less than 4,000 fans braving the rain, it seemed as if Rovers were intent on giving Bolton every chance of scoring again. And for striker Paul Randall, well, a second half he'll not forget in a long time. He and Steve White caused some discomfort in the Bolton defence. Here, a brilliant David Williams pass sets up White. But with an open goal at his mercy, his shot cannoned off a helpless Farnworth for a corner. And it was from that corner that Rovers equalised. The ball went out wide to Brian Williams. His chip back into the box was nodded down by White, and there was Paul Randall to do the rest. It was Randall's 100th first-team goal, and his delight was clear to all. But amazingly, 9 minutes later, Randall was replaced by Stevens. The Rovers crowd were incensed, and they let their team know. In injury time, George O'Garney had the beating of Tim Parkin, and Parkin's late tackle gave referee Dennis Hedges no alternative but to award a penalty. Jeff Chandler stepped up and ended Bristol Rovers' unbeaten season at home. He gave Bolton their first away point this season and put a real question mark on Rovers' promotion hopes. Well, that defeat now means Rovers are 11 points off the lead and just 3 points ahead of Bristol City, who have a game in hand.
Who Well, that pitch certainly didn't look frozen. It looked quite the opposite.
Of course, it's a double helping of actions. Of course, off that transfer deal for Bournemouth's Billy Rafferty tonight. We hear that Bournemouth couldn't agree personal terms with Steve White, who was being offered in a part exchange deal for Rafferty. Well, White wasn't playing on Saturday when Rovers won their first league game since New Year's Day.
Well, after 7 games without a win, the spotlight was well and truly on Rovers player-manager David Williams. Could he steer them back on promotion course? The team couldn't have made a more impressive start. Archie Stevens flicking on for Paul Randall. And that back pass to Ian Holloway, but luck on the side of the Plymouth keeper, David Phillip. Williams himself almost broke the deadlock in the 4th minute with a tremendous drive against the inside of the post. Randall picked up the rebound and did everything right except put the ball in the net. Once again, it was the killer touch in front of goal which let Rovers down. Mark O'Connor was having a particularly good first half and supplied the perfect cross to Randall. He lost his marker on the far post, but this time Phillip made a good save. The breakthrough came on the stroke of half-time. Stevens again won the aerial battle, and Ian Holloway's set up Brian Williams to beat Phillip from 25 yards out, his first league goal of the season. With Argyle labouring, there was little in the first half to cheer the staunch Pilgrim supporter Michael Foot, although they almost clawed their way back at the start of the second half with a shot from John Uzzell. It took a fingertip save from Ray Cashy to keep Rovers ahead. The Rovers failed to reproduce their first half form and almost paid dearly when Tommy Tynan's header dropped onto the stanchion. It sparked the Pirates out of their lethargy, and Randall created yet another chance for himself with some good control. But once again, his finishing let him down, and Plymouth's part-time keeper saved. Rovers were lucky to escape when the Plymouth substitute Rowbottom appeared to be hauled down in the penalty area, but referee Ray Lewis waved play on. Archie Stevens and substitute Paul Bannon combined to create another chance for Randall, but again it was wasted. Worrying times for Randall as he tries to find his goal-scoring form.
Right, Bobby, reports I read in the papers of that game suggested that Rovers actually didn't play very well, even though they won the match.
I think they played very well in the first half when they had a strong wind at the back. I was actually allowed in the ground, Bruce. I must get that point in. It was an enjoyable first half, but I think David Williams and the lads all agree that it was a disappointing second half, but they did win. And having the bad run of results that they have had, it is important to get a victory behind you to give you that boost of confidence that they need.
I was going to ask you about this, the psychological effect of actually getting the win, never mind how you played, but getting the win after that little lean spell.
Yes, it's important, especially with the fixtures that they've got coming up this week. City at home to Derby tomorrow night, and then home to Millwall in the top half of the...
To score Rovers' first goal, and of course work the other. Well, there was little doubt that Ian Holloway, dropped for the first time this season, was extremely unhappy as he warmed up in his replacement tracksuit and had to watch Geraint Williams in his usual shirt and clearly hoping to hang on to it. Now, Georgie Williams, as he's known, so nearly pulled off an opportunist early goal, some shoddy defence and Williams' chip, full 35 yards out, just missed the goal. Well, the action now switches to the second half as Holloway is brought on to replace Welsh international Neil Slatter 20 minutes from time. It was a gamble to fire up Rovers' attack, and it certainly seemed to provide the tonic needed because O'Connor beat Ron Green, but his centre was just too good for the advancing Archie Stevens. Holloway's replacement, Geraint Williams, was on target, but a brilliant save from Green. Moments later, City's corner was nodded on by Timmy Parkin. Holloway chested well, turned on it, a little deflection off Barrow, and he found the corner of the net. And it was Holloway, shirt number 12, who set up City's second a minute from time. His cross to Parkin enabled a clever 1-2. Geraint Williams shoots, hits the post, and there is Paul Bannon to find the empty net. Thus ended an incredible day for Ian Holloway, who afterwards managed to stifle his disappointment.
Oh, it's ups and downs, isn't it? Football, well, life in general is, and I was just pleased to get on there and have a chance.
I mean, I've just overheard you saying that you considered that you hadn't been playing very well for the last couple of games, so the decision to drop you obviously wasn't that much of a surprise?
Oh, it's always a surprise. You might not be doing that well, but I feel I contribute to the team's performance however well I'm playing with the ball. So it was a surprise, but in the end of the day, all I can do is answer my critics on the pitch.
Well, we can report tonight that First Division Luton Town are watching Holloway at the moment, and we understand they may be considering an offer to buy him in the next week or so. Well, Bristol City slammed 4 goals into the Bolton net last night to help their promotion challenge as well. Now, the league table, as you can see, things looking pretty happier now for both Bristol clubs and for City.
He is in the squad, and if he plays against Scotland at Hampden Park in the vital World Cup qualifying match, this will be his 8th international cap. Well, both Bristol City and Bristol Rovers are now back in the promotion hunt again after wins, Rovers taking 3 points off Rotherham.
Well, in goal for Rovers on Saturday, their latest loan signing, Ron Green of Walsall. He's playing at the moment for the injured Ray Cashley. Promotion hopefuls Rotherham, who brought little more than 100 supporters for this top-of-the-table clash, were put under tremendous early pressure. It was Paul Randall who caused them all sorts of headaches in the penalty area. Rotherham's defence was caught square a couple of times. And this through ball ends up with a great save being called off by Bob Mims around the corner. It was one of those games where Rovers became more and more desperate to break the deadlock. They created more chances than Rotherham, but that little bit of luck was either missing or going Rotherham's way. Mims again making another brilliant save. And just a few minutes later, Mims, the under-21 goalie for England, earns his £15,000 transfer fee from Halifax by pulling off another brave save with Randall at his feet. Goal-hungry Randall managed to get the flick on with his head, only to see the ball bounce along the line and out of play. Transfer listed Ian Holloway eventually broke through the Rotherham United defence. He nipped in on the right and floated a perfect cross to the waiting head of Randall, who picked his spot to perfection. Mims was helpless, and the 27-year-old Rovers striker had scored his 18th goal of the season. Randall wasn't satisfied. He continued to buzz around the box. A nice 1-2 with Williams. And it saw his shot parried by Mims around the corner. Well, up the other end, Ron Green showed his agility as Rovers kept their promotion hopes alive. Just a point behind Rotherham, but with a game in hand. So we see the disappointed Bristol City fans leaving from the Muller Road end after a local derby that lived up to all expectations. Rovers fought hard. They deserve their victory in the end as we pick up the action now. A massive roar as the teams come out onto the field. And they came out to a rendition of One of the Family. To the victor, the spoils of 3 points, to the losers, dejection and a blow to their promotion hopes. One of the most fascinating battles was between Rovers' Tim Parkin, surely one of the best central defenders in the division, and new £30,000 striker Steve Johnson. And it was Johnson who showed his pace to nip between Rovers' 2 defenders to unleash a shot from 20 yards out, which only just went wide. In a half of seesaw action, City were lucky when their defence allowed Rovers too much room. Rayner's shot was blocked, Holloway's shot was blocked by Shaw, and the rebound went to a corner that went wide. Well, it would be fair to say City had the best scoring chances in the first half. And when Pritchard was put loose on the right, his vicious swirling shot only just went wide. So everything still to play for at half-time, gusting winds, and certainly the flags almost bending double. Then came the fireworks, and it didn't take a lot of imagination to work out which supporters threw which smoke bombs. The second half started with Pritchard buzzing around Rovers' box, his shot so nearly poked home by the diving Johnson. But then came the goal. Rayner's free kick, no offside as O'Connor timed his volley. Holloway was there to put the ball into an empty net. And quite a day for the young player who only hours earlier had refused to sign a new contract. Steve Johnson should have tied it up when he was clearly robbed by the wind. The ball blew right over the crossbar. So for Rovers, a memorable victory, and a goal coming from an offside decision.
And I went down to Plymouth to watch them a few weeks ago, and they caught Plymouth offside 6 or 7 times. And this time we caught them once or twice, and we got the goal from it. Great.
It created a number of chances, and it just wasn't our day in front of goal. Steve Johnson did everything perfectly right, and on a normal day without the wind he'd have scored, and you could see the wind get it and take it over the crossbar, unless the Eastville supporters were blowing and puffing it over.
Well, as we look at the winning goal again, Terry Cooper felt that perhaps they were offside.
I think that Bristol City have played with this system all throughout the season, and it's paid off quite amazingly all the amount of times they've played it. Rovers tried a few delicate walkovers in the first half to break their concentration, and I felt that Steve Johnson played them onside in the first half. In the second half, there is a question whether they were offside or not, but under the circumstances, Bristol Rovers went on and finished up with the ball in the back of the net.
Well, before Saturday, both sides, of course, were saying they didn't want to draw, and they got their wish. But aren't things getting close up at the top of the third division now? Anyway, still with football, Swindon Town Bank. This man, David Williams, said an emotional farewell to Bristol Rovers supporters at Eastville last night after his final game as manager. Well, Williams has resigned to concentrate on playing without the pressure of management. The board is expected to appoint his successor on Friday.
It was a sad evening all round as players and the 3,700 spectators stood in silence as a mark of respect for those who died in the horrendous Bradford fire which claimed over 50 lives. It was the last time David Williams' name would appear in the team list, and victory over York would have been the perfect ending to his Rovers managerial career. He was soon in the action, and Gary Penrice gave Rovers just the start they wanted with a superb headed goal. There it goes. That was his first in league football. The players all seemed to want to make sure Williams finished on a high note, setting him up for a number of famous long shots. It looked a probability until injury time, when ironically a slip-up by Williams himself allowed York to break in midfield. And you can count on one hand mistakes made by Williams this season. Benton picked up the loose ball, Butler clear, he kept his head to beat Ron Green for the equaliser, and that in the 91st minute. Well, the disappointment of conceding a late goal didn't make any difference to the fans. They'd already decided to pay their own special tribute to the man who'd been the club's longest-serving manager since the days of Don Megson. Hundreds invaded the pitch to carry Williams shoulder high, the mistake forgiven and forgotten. Williams now plans to concentrate on playing without the pressures of management. His successor won't be named until Friday. Whoever it is, though, will be hoping to build up a similar kind of rapport with the fans. Despite all the emotion of the evening, Williams had no real regrets.
Well, I'm more disappointed with the result in the end, actually, and my mistake which led to the final goal, because we'd played reasonably well. We'd fallen into our old habit of missing a number of good chances, but we seemed to be reasonably comfortable at 1-0, and with just, I don't know, a couple of minutes to go at the most, I suppose, to concede a goal then and come away with a draw, it leaves it all a little bit flat.
You've finished now as manager. Any regrets? That's the obvious question.
No, I don't think I can afford to look back and regret anything because I've got to look to the future. I thought long and hard about the decision. The decision is made. I feel it's the right decision, and I get on with playing now.
Finally, a great send-off by the fans, didn't it?
Yes, I mean, that was smashing of them to come on like that and show their appreciation. That was really touching.
A really emotional evening there. Well, a collection was taken at last night's match for the Bradford disaster, and today Woodspring became the first local council to contribute to the Mayor of Bradford's fund with a cheque for £1,000. Right, it's Wednesday, it's time for your help with the police and police
season, and Bristol Rovers clearly wanted to end their somewhat disappointing season with a win over arch-rivals Bristol City. Well, they opened their scoring account in the 4th minute. Randall broke free, and a defender's tackle gave Steve White one of the easiest goals of the season. Four minutes into the second half, Pritchard was tripped by McCaffrey. A clear penalty, and clearly an incident which annoyed new manager Gould on the bench. Alan Walsh scored his 27th goal of the season from the spot. 30 minutes of extra time was needed, and Gould's pep talk certainly paid off for Rovers. Substitute Nicky Tanner, after just 11 minutes in his first professional match, beat Shaw with a superb left-foot shot. Not bad for the teenage player, who was paid just £5 petrol money to turn up. Then O'Connor's persistence caused havoc in City's defence. He managed to retain the ball and then made the all-telling cross. Paul Bannon nipped between two defenders to score a brilliant goal. So the night belonged to Bristol Rovers. The third time the Blues have beaten City this season. Now everyone takes a well-earned summer break before the rigours of a new season, which starts, listen to this, in about 12 weeks' time. have played their last game at Eastville. The news is expected to be announced in a couple of weeks' time, after that extraordinary general shareholders meeting at Bath City. So it was an emotional day for the fans on Saturday, and there was Bob Crampton.
Eastville has been home to Bristol Rovers since 1884, much of the time playing at this stadium. The faithful fans have filed in through the turnstiles in the good times and more recently in the bad times. With money tight, the club has to find a better deal when it comes to ground rental. A move to Bath could save £35,000 a year. So as the team took the field for what must be the last time at Eastville, there was sad resignation from the long-standing followers of the Blues.
If they move to Bath, I'm sure that 50% of the supporters agree with this, and I'm not very happy at all about going to Bath, although, having said that, I probably will watch them at Bath.
Have you been coming to Eastville long?
Yes, funny you should say that. I haven't missed a home game here for 33 years.
I don't know if it would really make a lot of difference to the club themselves. They would lose some supporters and gain others, I should think.
But won't it change the character of Bristol Rovers?
If we stay there too long, it will. We'll lose identity. You know, it's funny to say. I mean, you got to look at finances and everything. If it's the best move for the Blues, well and good.
I'm sure it would, and eventually it would almost become Bath Rovers, I would have thought.
But what about the bulk of the supporters here? Do you think they'd travel to Bath?
I don't think so.
No.
Not a lot. I think we'd be lucky to get a 2,000 gate if we go to Bath.
They can have it in our backyard if they like, but I'd follow them.
The final whistle saw a spontaneous act from the crowd. They saluted the end of the Eastville era. Just a couple of hours later, the club's possessions were moved out. With more speculation than goals this season, the next home for the trophy cupboard is still uncertain, although the run of play makes Bath the obvious winner. After having watched a dull 1-1 draw against Chesterfield, the fans left Eastville passing under an ironic sign. Their team still wanting a point to avoid relegation, and no one quite sure what the future holds.
Sad day. Before you start ringing us about why we didn't show you the goals, I must tell you that under contractual rules of the Football League, we're not allowed to do so. We're staying with soccer.